You are ready. We are ready.
Awesome. Very cool.
All right. Why is it not spotlighting? Oh, I guess I just need to stop sharing. There we go. There we go.
All right.
Boom.
All right. Hi, everybody. How's it going? All right. My name's Miss Melissa. I work for Denver Water. Miss Harrison's going to help me. I'm going to ask you guys to participate. And so she's going to help me relay and call on people because since I don't know everybody's names and all the friends in the classroom, I can't see them all. So we're going to, we'll work with it.
We can do it.
Yes. So you guys, I hear, have been studying about water. And at Denver Water, we care about water, obviously. And there are natural hazards, or perhaps you call them natural disasters, but things that happen in our watershed that affect our water. During this time, I know you guys will be kind. I'm not worried about that, but definitely be brave and be ready to explore. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. You can ask a question at any time. We don't have to wait till the end. I love questions, and so, if you have them, please ask them. We will do our best. So what are some natural hazards that you know about? So those of you that are at home, you can raise your hand, you can put things in the chat, or those of you in the classroom, raise your hand. What are some natural hazards or natural disasters that you know about?
All right, Ben.
A heat wave.
Oh, that's a great one, a heat wave. I didn't even think about that one. I don't even have that on my list. Great one.
All right, Miss Haley, speaker. Thunderstorm.
A thunderstorm, definitely.
All right, Sawyer. Tornado.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Paxton. He says tsunami.
Oh, definitely.
All right, Ellie. Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ethan. Hurricane.
Yeah, you guys are naming them all. Any others?
All right, Marin.
Flood.
A flood. All right, Noah. Avalanche.
Yeah, great guys. You guys did all, you named tons of them. So there's definitely hazards that we don't have to worry about here in Colorado, like hurricanes don't typically affect us. Earthquakes aren't really a problem. Volcanic eruptions aren't really a problem. But we have others that we do have to worry about. And you guys talked about some of those: blizzards, tornadoes, thunderstorms, things like that. We have three that are really impactful to our water and three that we really focus on here at Denver Water. And those are floods, wildfires, and drought. All three of those natural hazards really play a big role in how we get our water and how our water is affected. So this is our watershed. A watershed, does anybody know what a watershed is? Do like a thumbs up or a hands up if you've heard what a watershed is.
I've got a couple, but most of us are no.
Thumbs down. All right. So a watershed is really all of the land. So you can think about nature. You can think about forests and trees. It's rivers, creeks, streams, reservoirs, but it's all the land where water drains. So if you guys have ever watched it rained here in Denver yesterday, it rained earlier in the week, and you've seen water like running down the street or maybe down a hill, or if you have a driveway that's got a slant, you can see that water running downhill. And a watershed is the area where all the water in that area kind of runs downhill together and collects. And so in Denver, we have a lot of land that we use that's west of Denver to collect water. We call that our collection system. And so our collection system consists of mountains, forests, trees, snow, rivers, streams, reservoirs, all of the nature, the outside stuff where water collects. Once we are able to capture that water, we bring it down through rivers and sometimes pipes, and we bring it down to our treatment plants. And our treatment plants treat the water, they make it clean and safe for us to drink. And then we take that clean water and we distribute it out through all of these pipes that are underneath the city of Denver. And those pipes connect our treatment plants to all of your houses, your school, buildings, businesses, all kinds of different places. And that's our distribution system. And we also have a recycle system, but we're not going to talk a lot about the recycle system today. But basically, it just takes water that we've already used, we clean it again, and we're able to use it a second time. And then natural hazards really affect all parts of our system. So not only do they happen in our watershed, so if you think of something like a blizzard or a flood, those things can happen in the city too, and they can affect our distribution system, our treatment plants, the infrastructure that we have that's, you know, connecting all of these pieces together can get damaged as well. So we're going to think about that in a smaller kind of situation. Everybody goes to school. Some of you might walk to school, but we're going to pretend that all of you are walking to school tomorrow, no matter where you live. So it might be a really long walk, it might be a short walk. We're all walking to school tomorrow. And the goal is to get to school warm and dry. Now, it's Colorado, right? We have very weird weather sometimes. So we're gonna say it could snow tomorrow. We could have lots and lots and lots of snow. It might rain tomorrow. It might be windy, like really windy, or you could have a combination of all of these things. So it might be snowy and windy, or rainy and windy, or it might snow and rain tomorrow. So you have to get to school warm and dry. So what I want you guys to do is think about what might you need to do, what might you need to think about, plan for, to be prepared for any of these situations. So I'm going to give you a second to think, and then I'm going to ask you to share. What are the things that you're going to think about so that you can get to school warm and dry, no matter what happens, the weather? When you have some ideas, go ahead and raise your hand.
All right, Sunny, what are you thinking?
So you could see how the weather is tomorrow, and then you could plan for it to get like snow, get some warm air, and then you could bring an umbrella.
Okay, so she said check the weather to see if you could figure out what the weather forecast was.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
okay.
And
Great
then if
point.
it was snowy, we would wear warm clothes to keep you warm. And if it was going to be rainy, then you might bring an umbrella.
All right, excellent. Other thoughts about how you might be prepared for any of these situations?
I'm looking through my remote friends. Oh, yes, Ben.
Stay inside.
Oh, you muted yourself again.
Say again, Ben.
Get inside your house when it gets when dark cloud, really dark clouds show up. So like in your house, because
Right, so find
might
some
be a
kind of
tornado.
shelter or protection.
Oh, good shelter. Astria.
If it's raining, get a raincoat.
Okay, if it's raining, bring a raincoat.
Okay,
Lila.
Also, you could wear a coat and an umbrella.
Bring a coat and an umbrella. All right.
Oh, so you're gonna have a backup. So I like that idea of a backup system, right? So you've got a coat, but maybe that's not gonna be enough, or maybe you lose your coat, or you forget your coat, or it's in your backpack, it rips, or something happens. Got a backup with the umbrella, like it.
Good. Elena?
You could bring rain boots or snow boots.
Bring rain boots or snow boots.
Right? Or maybe you have boots that could do dual purpose, right? I have a pair of boots that are really warm and they're waterproof. So I could wear them in the rain and in the snow, right? Good idea.
All right, Serne? Oh, okay, so you can just go talk to Mrs. Auditor. Okay, sorry, that one wasn't for you.
No worries.
All right, anybody at home have any more ideas? I might think about if I'd have to leave early to get, if it's gonna snow, I might have to leave earlier to walk to school.
Right,
Or my
right.
timing might change. I think that's all of our ideas right now.
All right. So what you guys did is you thought about things that you have to plan for ahead of time, right? So you did things before you left, like checked the weather, gathered your things. Maybe you thought about backups or redundancy, meaning that, like the boots that can do two jobs. During your walk, there's not much you can do, right? You just kind of have to focus on what you have, what's available, and getting there as best you can, right? But then afterwards, maybe on your walk, you noticed that like your jacket had a hole in it or the zipper didn't work. And so afterwards, you do things like repair those things and figure out how to make the next walk, maybe the walk home, even better, right? So, maybe you bring two pair of gloves next time because you realize that your hands, got wet and your gloves weren't waterproof. And so you wanted a dry pair of gloves or maybe a dry pair of socks or something like that, right? So once you have experienced the situation, you can say, there are things that we could do better next time. And so at Denver Water, we do the exact same process when we have natural disasters. The before box is the biggest because that's where we spend most of our time, right? We do lots and lots and lots of planning before something happens in hopes that it's not so bad. And then during the natural disaster or natural hazard, whatever's happening, we just have to kind of deal as best we can. And then afterwards, we think and reflect, repair, and make changes to our plans. So floods are something that definitely happen here in Colorado. It's something that's happened throughout our history. Denver has flooded a number of times. This picture right here is Denver. These are all Colorado, and we've had to deal with floods throughout our history, right? And so we do things to help us. So I have two videos here. What happens with a flood? I mean, it's very intuitive, right? A flood is basically just too much water or too much snow melt all at once. And so, whoops. So on the left, we have a gentle rain, and on the right, we have flooding. So as you can see on the left here, this gentle rain gives us time for the soil to soak up the water. And that's the real thing with flooding. If the ground can soak it up, then you're not going to have flooding. But if you have so much water coming at once that the soil can't soak it up, then you get erosion, the soil erodes away, gets washed down. You just have a lot of water, and water is very powerful. I don't know if you guys have ever maybe walked in a running creek and you realize like, whoa, I could get washed away here. This is really powerful. Or if you've been in the ocean and had, waves coming at you, you can see that water is really rather powerful. And so again, this idea of infiltration, that's the soil soaking up the water. If that's happening at the same rate as the water's coming down, you're not going to have flooding. But if it's happening at a slower rate, if the soil is not able to soak up that water as fast as all that water is coming down, you're going to get runoff. And so here in Colorado, it happens from two main ways. We get it from rapid snow melt. So if we have a lot of snow melting at once and we can't deal with that amount of snow melting all at once, or thunderstorms, and both of those happen. Wildfires, I don't know if you guys remember last summer and fall, we had lots of wildfires here in the Colorado, Denver area. And again, something that we've had to deal with a lot, but there are two kinds of fires. There's healthy fires and there's unhealthy fires, right? So looking at this picture, which one would you say is healthy? Which one would you say is unhealthy? And how do you know?
Any of my remote friends want to say any ideas?
Or you might, if you don't know which one's healthy and unhealthy, what do you notice about the pictures?
Jensen, what would you like to share?
The half that's burnt is the unhealthy.
Oh, I see. So over in this picture on the left, you're saying this part is unhealthy? Okay.
All right. Logan, what are you thinking?
I think the unhealthy fire is the left one and the healthy one is the right one. Because most wildfires we get are healthy because they're pretty big too.
Okay, so he thinks on the left one is the unhealthy fire, and the one on the right is the healthy one.
Okay.
All right. Let's see, looking for some new, Abby.
The first one is non-healthy.
Left or right? Left or right? The one closest to me?
Yeah.
You think is which, healthy or unhealthy?
Unhealthy and
And why do you think so? Why do you think the one on the left is unhealthy?
I mean, it's healthy because it would get the whole area.
So you think the left one is healthy because it's not the whole area? Okay. And the one on the right is unhealthy because it's all over the place. Okay. Nixon, what are you thinking?
I think the one on the left is healthy because it's not spreading as much and the fire is way smaller. The one on the right is unhealthy because there's just a huge fire and everything's burning.
Okay, so Nixon says he thinks the one on the left is healthy because it's only part of it and is looking controlled, and the side on the right is unhealthy because it's just taking over everything.
All right. So I always think of forest fires as like cleaning up your room in two different ways, right? So one way to clean up your room is to go through and pick up the things kind of one by one on the floor, maybe put them away, right? We get rid of the trash, we throw that in the trash can, right? That would be like a healthy fire. And that is this picture here on the left. And one way that I know that it's a healthy fire is that I don't see fire in the trees. I only see fire on the ground. And so it's like picking up your room, right? Like picking up each thing off the floor, putting it away. I also know that since there's a person right here, that means that this fire isn't really very hot. I mean, it's warm, it is still fire, right? But it's cool enough that he can stand relatively close to it and stand there, right? So healthy fires are like cleaning up your room. An unhealthy fire would be like taking a leaf blower or some kind of like big machine and just like getting rid of all of it, like a big old, like, what are those things called? Digger type situations from those, I don't know why I can't think of the name, but you know
Like
what
a-
I'm talking about, big like farm machinery, construction equipment, and just getting rid of everything. So that's one way to clean up your room, but it's not very effective, and it might get rid of things that you actually want. And so this fire on the right is an unhealthy fire, and the way that I can tell is that the fire is all the way up here in the trees, and it's burning all of these trees. It's burning everything on the ground. There's no people around. It's very hot. And so unhealthy fires remove everything. So it's like taking a bulldozer, that's the word I'm looking for, and just coming through your room and getting rid of everything. Healthy fire burns some things, but not everything. And it's much cooler and it's more selective, and it is picking up all of your little toys and all of your things in your room. Does that make sense? And so when you have a healthy fire, it cleans up the forest of all the trash, but it allows things to grow back. You still have trees, you still have an ecosystem there that can replenish itself relatively quickly, and it's better than it was before. Unhealthy fires burn everything. They get rid of everything. And that's a big problem for our water, because what it does is the fire burns the soil, and it like melts plant compounds in the soil, which makes it so water can't go through. So the water can't suck up that, the soil can't suck up that water anymore, and it just runs off. And so if you look at these two pictures, on the left, we have a forest that has not burned, and you can see all this water that's able to come into the soil, infiltrate is that big word, into the soil, and come down into our lake or river, whatever that is. And the forest helps clean the water, it's healthy, it does a lot of really important things. In a burned area, that water cannot infiltrate into the ground, it can't get soaked up, and it just rushes off the surface into our river or reservoir, and it brings with it all that stuff that it burned, the ash, dirt, sticks, trees, all kinds of stuff. And so what you end up is something like this. So this is one of our reservoirs. This happened after a fire way back in 1995. And we had a big fire. It was one of the biggest fires in Colorado at the time. And after this fire, we had lots and lots of rain, and it washed all this stuff down into the reservoir. And this is a person right here on a boat. So you can see how much stuff is in that reservoir. And we just had to clean it up. We just had to go in with machines and like big machines that like suck up stuff and try to clean it out. We weren't super successful at that. So here again, same thing after the fire, you can see the water's all brown and muddy. So it's brought down lots of dirt. And we had to clean it. And this fire and these rainstorms brought down about 40 years worth of sediment in one event. So in a couple days, we got 40 years worth of junk in our reservoir. And we ended up having to close this reservoir for 2 months while everything settled out. People that were getting water out of this reservoir at the beginning said the water tasted smoky, like tasted like a fire. And so it really impacts our water quality quite a bit. And then the last one's drought, right? And drought is no water or very little water. When things dry up and we have, drought problems. And drought is happening in Colorado right now. After the storms that we had a few weeks ago, you can see that drought has improved. So this is the state of Colorado, two different maps. This one here on the left was in January, and this one here on the right was the middle of April. And you can see that in some areas, drought has improved. It's not as red. We have more yellow and orange, which is better than red and really dark red. But we're still in a drought, and most of our state is still in a drought because we have not had lots of good snow and lots of rain, although the recent rains have actually helped quite a bit. So the reason why drought happens and the reason why it's so bad for our water is that the soil steals the water. So we talked about infiltration, right? When you have moist soils, so soils that have gotten snow and have gotten rain and they are moist, that's the soil on the left. When you have a drought situation where the water has evaporated and we haven't gotten a lot of rain and we haven't gotten a lot of snow and our soils and our plants are very, very dry, that's the soil on the right. And what I want you guys to notice is the difference in how long it takes for water to start running through the soil. So that water on the left right there that's coming down, that's runoff. And runoff is what we can collect. We can't get water until it runs off or runs out of the soil into our streams, rivers, reservoirs. On the right, you can see it's still going, right? That soil is still soaking up water, and we haven't had runoff yet. So this is what we're expecting to happen this summer, is that even when we have the snow melting, it's going to take a while for it to start running through the soil so we can collect it. And if you look at the timers on the top, the soil on the right took about 3 times as long to start having runoff come through as the soil on the left. So what that means is about 3 times as much water was needed to get the same amount of runoff. So what that means is we just need a lot more snow and a lot more rain to get the same amount of water that we're used to when we have a drought. And so again, that's our situation. Even if we had normal snow, like last winter, not this winter, but last winter, we had above normal snowpack, meaning we got more snow than we're used to, but we still had well below normal runoff because all of that soil soaked up the water. And so all it does, I just want to bring your attention to these little pictures right here. On the left, when there's water already in those spaces in between the soil, the water just runs right through. But when there's no water in between those spaces in the soil, the water has to fill up all those spaces before it runs through. And so that's why the soil is soaking up that water. So at Denver Water, we do the same thing that you guys did when you were thinking about walking to school. We do a lot of planning and a lot of things before a natural disaster or a natural hazard. We do some things during and some things after. So some things that we do beforehand is that we think about, so this is for wildfires, we think about where are the risky spots? Where are places that we need to maybe set healthy fires or clean up the forest so it can be healthier? One way we can do that is using goats. Goats eat everything, right? And they can come through and they can eat a ton of overgrown vegetation, which is really, really helpful. We can set fires that are set on purpose. So these are called controlled burns or controlled fires. Obviously, we're setting those fires at times of the year when there's not a big fire risk, like in the winter when there's snow on the ground. So we gather, this would be like gathering all the trash in your room and throwing it away in the trash can, right? During the fire, what we're mostly concerned with is people and infrastructure. Can we keep the people safe and can we keep the water coming? So, you know, if there are things that we can do to evacuate people or move, you know, turn off water over here and use the water from over here, then that's what we do during a disaster. And then afterwards, we repair and we fix things that might have gotten broken, or we, do things particularly with the wildfires to the forest to help them recover faster. We want to block as much of that sediment coming into our reservoirs as possible. So we will like put up actual little like dams in the forest that will keep the sediment back, and plant trees, plant plants, things like that. So this is the time, Ms. Harrison, that they're going to need this sheet, and I'll go over it while she's passing that out. So those of you at home, I think you have this digitally somewhere. But if you have a sheet in front of you, this is a representation of a water system and our watershed, right? It's not all the details, but it's just some of them. And the goal is to protect the community and to keep the water flowing. So I'm going to ask you guys to think about how could you do that given a natural hazard. I'm going to ask you to pick one. But first, we're going to go over a couple things. We're going to label a couple things so that you know what you're looking at. So the first thing we're going to label is the water. So up here, top left, this is our reservoir right here. It's being held back by a dam. And we have that dam and that reservoir coming into a river. And these little pieces coming into our river, those are called tributaries. So those might be like a stream or a smaller creek that comes down into our river, right? And then we have some forests. We have some healthy forests right here. And we also have some unhealthy forests. So this unhealthy forest might have lots of beetle kill or years of fire suppression, meaning that it hasn't burned. So there's a lot, it would be like having tons and tons of trash and toys on your floor, right? So lots and lots of stuff in the forest that could burn. And then over here, we have an area that has already burned. So just like we saw in that picture where all the stuff came down into the reservoir, we had a fire, and that we call a burn scar. And so that area is really prone to flooding and to runoff coming into our creeks and bringing with it lots and lots of stuff. And then the green stuff is infrastructure. So over here, this little building here is our water treatment plant. And we have pipes leaving the water treatment plant to bring water. So that's part of our distribution system. In reality, Denver Water has 3,000 miles of pipes. So not just 2 pipes, we've got tons and tons of them. But again, we're not going to draw that on the picture. And then what you can't see is all the underground infrastructure. So all of the stuff, all of the pipes, all of the pump stations, all of the things that bring water everywhere. So you just have to imagine that that actually is there. All right. So if we think about something like a drought, so this is what I'm going to ask you guys to do. You can choose drought, you can choose wildfire, or you can choose flooding. So I'm going to ask you to choose one, but first I'm going to show you what I want you to do. So you don't have to do anything yet, I just want you to watch. So think about a drought, right? We talked about a drought, not enough rain, not enough snow, not enough water. We've got really dry soils. And what I want to think about is how are those dry soils going to affect the forests? How are they going to affect my water supply? How are they going to affect how much water we have to treat, right? So if we have a drought, we're going to have less water. And that might mean that we have less water to treat and less water for our people, right? I'm going to think about the people and how much water they might need. I might ask them to do some conservation, to change their habits so they're using less water, right? And so now I want to think about solutions. I want to think about, okay, what could I do to protect my people, to keep them with water, getting water that they need, and, keep that water going, right? So what I'm gonna do, one solution I have is to build a taller dam, right? So my thought is if I increase my dam, that's like a bigger bowl or a bigger cup. And so I have more water that I can collect that I can bring to my people. And so that's going to increase the size of my reservoir. I'm gonna have more water available. So even in times of drought, I have stored more water, so I have more water for my people. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what I want you guys to do. Any idea is a good idea. If you want to put a blanket over the entire forest in order to protect it, you can do that, okay? So Denver Water would probably not do that because it's maybe not practical, but I want you guys to think outside of the box and to come up with any solutions that you see. So we're gonna choose one natural hazard. It's either gonna be flood, drought, or fire, wildfire. I want you to place that hazard on your map. So if your fire is in the forest, draw fire in the forest. If you have a flood happening downtown, draw that flood happening downtown. And then what are the things that you need to think about in order to protect your community and keep the water flowing? So you can think about that before, during, and after, if that helps you think about it. So what could you do before so that you can protect them and keep the water going? What might you do during? What might you do after? Any questions on what you're supposed to do?
Does everybody give me a thumbs up or if you understand what your job is? Okay, I have a couple of thumbs down. Can you clarify?
Oh, I don't have the paper.
Oh, I'm sorry, who is that one?
I don't have the paper.
So Ms. Haley, you're right, you don't have the exact piece of paper here, but it's also on the assignment. So if you have printing capabilities, you can go to this exact assignment and print it out if you want, or you can just draw it on, you can draw the very easy river on just a regular piece of paper with a couple of mountains there at the top, and then add your ideas, okay? So Mr. Noah, what is it that you're not sure about? You need to pick. So she said choose one natural hazard. So the three that she went over. So you're gonna do either a drought, a flood, or a wildfire. Pick one of those. So raise your hand if you think you're gonna do flood. Raise your hand if you think you're gonna do drought. Raise your hand if you think you're gonna do wildfire. Okay, a lot of wildfires going on over here.
Cool.
All right. So now that you've made a decision on which one you're doing, now you're going to look at your picture and you're going to try to think about. So put that hazard somewhere you think it's going to go on your map. So like she put the drought, you saw where it was on her picture. So if you're going to put wildfire, put it where you think the wildfire is going to be, the drought's going to be, or where is the flood going to happen? You can draw that flood. Then you're going to think about what are the things you can do, you think, to solve that problem, either before, during, or after. So you have to really brainstorm, don't you? You have to think. Mr. Fenn, start drawing. Everybody's pencil should be busy. So Mrs. Molly, you remember where I might keep all my extra pencils over here? Come on over. Right toward me, sweetie. Right there. A whole bunch of them. All right, everybody should be drawing away. Leo's working hard. Yes, she asked you to draw a picture of where you think the fire is going to happen. Yes. If it's a flood, you might draw lots of rushing water. You're drying your drought. She had a great idea about the drought there with the looks, without those lines that showed like the gaps in the soil. Okay, and then what do you think?
That was my drought.
Okay. Anything else? Let's see if, is that your before, during, or after?
Because like I'll put the blanket on before, and then during I'll let the blanket out, and after I'll spray the water.
Okay, all right, you have all three stages, right? Okay, now how are you gonna solve it? What are you gonna do before, during, or after to help it so it doesn't mess up with the water system?
Before I will make sure.
Okay, go dry, go dry, go dry. Got a good idea, Miss Lane. Go dry. Oh, wow, look at that. Wow.
Ms. Harrison, for time,
With this show-
are we done at 10:45?
So we will be, and then I have you down again at 1 o'clock. Is that right?
Is it the same group of kids?
It is, yeah.
Okay, all right.
I want to show you, I don't know if you can see my friends here has quite a few.
Awesome.
A still house in case of a fire. All right. Okay, so that's the drought. Now what are you gonna do to prepare for it? So the grass is gonna be prepared for it. Okay. Oh, all right, with bricks? Yeah, okay. All right, we got firewalls being built.
Awesome.
So I'm thinking, or he drew a city with a dam, and the dam broke, and the city was Duluth.
Oh,
But he just worried that had might be bad idea.
ah.
But he's thinking,
Oh, we had lots of thinking. Lots of extra dams being built.
Excellent.
All right. What'd you think of, August? Build water pipes up to the, where the drought is? Okay, so if the drought's here, we're trying to figure out how to get water to these people. So instead of sending water up the hill, we want to figure out how we can get the water from up here. Oh, drill a well. Ah, okay. In the mountains, we talk about wells a lot because we don't have necessarily the piping system.
Right.
So there's the fire. Okay, now how are you going to protect our water now? That's a good start. That's an awesome start, Ms. Bonet. The dam. Mhm. What are those again? Okay, some concrete. We have some rerouting of some places.
Awesome.
So I would like build pipes to use into like going with the forest, so the soil will like it won't get dry.
Okay, so we're watering the forest.
Excellent.
All right, so watering the forest, it'll be less dry, so there will be less likely a fire, okay? Good job, Mary. All right, oh, there's your fires, now how are you protecting the water? You gotta think of how we're gonna keep these from affecting this. You wanna go think of, yeah, and have some ideas? Is this a good place for us to?
Yeah,
figure it out?
so what I'll ask you guys to do is to keep thinking about this. I'll give you a little bit more time at the beginning of when we meet again this afternoon. And then I'll ask you guys to share, and then I will give you guys opportunities to ask questions. We probably won't need all 45 minutes.
Okay,
So just to give you that heads up.
Perfect.
And if you guys think of questions between now and then, definitely either write them down or just try to remember them. And we will answer as many of those as you guys have.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We will, everybody can just keep if you all want to just put your paper inside your desk so that you have it here for 1 o'clock. Whether you're Mrs. Robbins or Mrs. Harrison, go ahead and keep it there. Thank you so much, Miss Melissa.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll see you a little bit before 1. I'm gonna pretty much be the same system where, feel free to come in and I'll just use and abuse my time until 1.
Perfect.
All
Perfect.
right.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
So all my friends at home, all my Merritt students, remember you're coming to Mrs. Harrison. All right, give me a thumbs up. I see Leo, Miss Moran. We're coming to Mrs. Harrison's link. All right. All right, Mr. Johnson. All right. Thank you. I'm very grateful. Everything's on fire.